Hey everyone, this is Dhanushan. In this video, I'm going to explain you what is OSI model. The OSI model, the Open Systems Interconnection Model, is actually a set of instructions and rules that explain how different computers and systems communicate over a network. The OSI model was developed by the ISO, International Organization of Standardization, where the OSI model actually consists of 7 layers as shown here, and each layer has specific functions and responsibilities. The layered approach makes it easier for different devices and technologies to work together. The OSI model provides a clear structure for data transmission and managing network issues. The OSI model is widely used as a reference to understand how network systems function. There are many mnemonics that are revolving around the OSI model. I personally prefer this one. Please do not touch Steve's pet alligator. If you search, you'll find much more, but this is something which I prefer to remember the layers in order of the OSI model. In layer 1, we actually have the physical layer. This is the lowest layer of the OSI model. It is responsible for actually physical connection between the devices, where a physical layer consists information in the form of bits. Physical layer is responsible for transmitting individual bits from one node to the next. The physical layer is where the electric pulses that make up data transfer over a network are sent and received. It's the job of the physical layer to convert the binary data of the transmission into signals and transmit them across the network, as well as receiving incoming signals and converting them back into binary data.
This is just the beginning.
In the layer 2, we have the data link layer. The data link layer is responsible for a node-to-node delivery of the message. The main function of this layer is to make sure data transfer is error-free from one node to another over the physical layer. When a packet arrives in a network, it is the responsibility of the data link layer to transmit it to the host using its MAC address. This data link layer receives a packet from the network layer that includes the IP address of the remote computer and adds in the physical MAC address of the receiving endpoint. Inside every network enables computer is a network interface card which comes with a unique MAC address to identify it. The data link layer also serves as an important function when it receives data, as it checks the received information to make sure that it hasn't been corrupted during transmission, which could well happen when the data is transmitted from the layer 1 physical layer. In layer 3, we actually have the network layer. The network layer works on the transmission of data from one host to the other located in different networks. It also takes care of packet routing, like finding the shortest path to transmit the packet from a number of routes available. The sender and receiver's IP address are placed in the header by the network layer. For example, the internet is a huge network. When you want to send a request information from a web page, it's the network layer that takes the IP address from the page and figures out the best route to take. In layer 4, we have the transport layer. The transport layer provides services to the application layer and takes services from the network layer. The data in the transport layer is referred to as segments. It is responsible for the end-to-end delivery of the complete message. This transport layer is actually a very interesting layer that serves numerous important functions. Its first purpose is to choose the protocol over which the data is to be transmitted. There are two protocols actually. One is TCP and UDP, which are actually the common protocols being used. TCP is connection based and UDP is connectionless. When a protocol is actually selected, the transport layer then divides the transmission up to bite-sized pieces, which makes it easier to transmit the message successfully. In layer 5, we actually have the session layer. The session layer in the OSI model is responsible for the establishment connections, management of connections, termination of sessions between two devices. It also provides authentication and security. When the session layer actually receives the correctly formatted data from the presentation layer, it looks to see if it can set up a connection with the other computer across the network. If a session can be established, then it's the job of the session layer to maintain it, as well as to cooperate with the session layer of the remote computer in order to synchronize communications. The session layer is particularly important as a session that it creates is unique to the communication in question. When a session layer has successfully logged a connection between the host and the remote computer, the data is passed down to the transport layer. In layer 6, we have the presentation layer. The presentation layer is also called the translation layer. The data from the application is extracted here and manipulated as per the required format to transmit over the network. There are many protocols used in the presentation layer like JPG, MPEG, GIF, TLS or SSL, etc. The data tends to be in a format that the application understands, but it's not necessarily in a standardized format that could be understood by the application layer in the receiving computer. The presentation layer translates the data into a standardized format as well as handling for encryption, compression, or other transformations of data. With this complete, then the data is then passed down to the session layer. In layer 7, we have the application layer. The application layer of the OSI model essentially provides networking options to programs running on a computer. It works almost exclusively with applications providing an interface for them to use in order to transmit data. At the very top of the OSI model stack of layers, this helps applications to produce the data to be transferred over the network. This layer also serves as a window for the application services to access the network and for displaying the received information to the user. Protocols used in this layer, some of them are SMTP, FTP and DNS. When data is given to the application layer, it's passed down to the presentation layer. When we transfer information from one device to another, it travels through the 7 layers OSI model which we discussed. Let's now understand how the data flows to the OSI model in a step-by-step process. First, in the application layer, where we create the data. Next, it moves to the presentation layer where data is formatted and encrypted. Then moves to the session layer where connection is established and managed. Then moves to the transport layer where data is broken down into segments for reliable delivery. Next moves on to the network layer where segments are packaged into packets and routed. Next moves on to the data link layer where packets are framed and sent to the next device. Finally, it moves to the physical layer where frames are converted into bits and transmitted physically. Each layer adds specific information to ensure the data reaches to its destination correctly, and these steps are reversed upon arrival. So that's it for the video on the OSI models. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel as it will really mean a lot. And also share this video on social so that it might benefit someone. Until then, see you in the next video. Bye.